Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to Thanksgiving 101. So we're going to start with Mary's portion of the program. She's going to show us how to make, as I was saying, a dry brined roasted turkey dinner. And we're going to follow that with Mila, who's going to show us a sweet potato casserole. So without further ado, I will hand this over to Mary Schull. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. I just want to say, first of all, I've cooked a lot of turkeys, but I've never done a live demo. So hopefully this will work, like technology wise. But anyway, um, I wanted to call this Don't Be Afraid of the Turkey, because the first time I ever had to cook a turkey, that was before the internet. But even so, when you look for recipes for cooking turkeys, there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of them. And it can be overwhelming to try to figure out what way to cook it. And because I only cook a turkey once a year, and some people maybe cook it twice a year, but really not that often, you don't get enough practice to really get comfortable with it the way you would with maybe something else that you like to cook and you cook it frequently. So that makes it a little harder too. But the real thing that I've learned over the years is there's no like one right or best way to cook a turkey. The right way or the best way is what works for you, and that can vary year to year. I mean, every year, some people's Thanksgivings don't change that much, but sometimes they do. There's a lot of different factors that can affect how you're going to cook your turkey this year. How many people are you cooking for? How many other things are you making yourself? Do you have help? What else is being prepared in your kitchen? Even if you have help, how much oven space do you have? How much counter space do you have? What are your family traditions? Some families and people like to have the same thing every year and don't want the menu to vary at all, which can make it easier for the cook, but other people want some variety. So, a lot of people, I think, like the nostalgia of the holiday, and it makes it easier in some ways, but sometimes you want to try something different. So anyway, there's a lot of different factors that go into how am I going to cook the turkey this year. I've been hosting Thanksgiving for many, many years. I've tried a lot of different ways. Some of them were good and some of them were just okay. I like to experiment and try something different every now and just for fun. This recipe that I'm going to demo tonight, I just used last year for the first time. So this is really only my second time making it. And, just to give credit where credit is due, this recipe comes from a website called Smitten Kitchen. I didn't create the recipe or whatever. I'm tweaking it a little bit, but her recipe is the one I'm using. It's called dry brine turkey with roasted onions, and Rachel's going to share the link to it. But anyway, it's not my idea, but I did like it, and I liked the way it looked, and I made it last year, and I really liked the way it came out. I have tried other things over the years. The first time I made a turkey, I bought it and read what it said on the back and cooked it that way, and it was fine. One year I cooked it in a plastic oven bag, which is supposed to help keep it from drying out, which it did, but the skin didn't turn brown. So it wasn't dry, but it was also not crispy. So I didn't do that again. One time I wet brined it, which is when you soak the turkey for anywhere from 24 to 48 hours before you cook it in a big pot of heavily salted water and a little bit of sugar. And again, that's supposed to help keep it moist while it's cooking, which it did do. It takes a lot of time to do that. Obviously, you have to be ready, and have everything ready a couple days ahead. You have to have a lot of space in your fridge to have this big pot that's holding the turkey and all the liquid, which in my house, I don't have lots of extra fridge space Thanksgiving week. So I did that once. It tasted good. It was very moist. But for me, it wasn't worth the kind of the cost of time and space that it used. So, I didn't do that again, but it did work. One year we deep fried a turkey outside on the driveway. My son and his friends were here and they decided to do that, which I would only recommend doing that outside. It worked. The turkey cooked. It wasn't greasy the way you think it might be, considering you're frying it in a big vat of oil. But that needs a lot of tending. You can't just put that out there and come in and do other things. You got to pay attention to it. It's a little hard to measure when it's done because you're sticking a thermometer into a turkey that's in a vat of really hot oil. It's kind of hard to get it out at the end because if you have it in a pan in the oven, you put use your potholes and pull it out. There we had to figure out a way to get it out of the oil without dropping it, without getting burned or whatever. And it made a mess. So that is for the more adventurous cook, if you know what I mean. The turkey tasted great, but again, it was a lot of work. that's like a job for someone who has nothing else to do but stand outside and pay attention to, hot oil. I've never done this, but you can roast it in a charcoal grill, which I think could be good. That would take some tending too, because you really have to pay attention to the temperature, with a charcoal fire. You can cook it in your gas grill, which might be a little easier because, it's easier to regulate the temperature. Again, I've never done that, but the upside of that is it frees up your oven. If you're cooking your turkey in a grill outside, then, you have a lot more space and time in your oven. I've never done this, but I also think it'd be fun you can smoke a turkey if you either have a smoker or you can use your charcoal grill with, wood chips and all that to smoke it. Again, I think that's a job for someone who has nothing else to do, because that you have to pay attention to that. Maybe not constantly, but you can't walk away for half an hour, come back, and your coals have burned out and the turkey's not cooking anymore. So those are just things that, I would consider. And it really depends on, again, what I was saying before, how many people you're cooking for, do you have help, and whatever what the weather's going to be like that year. If it's going to pour rain or be really cold, maybe you don't want to be outside, I basically just roast my turkey in the oven. I use some vegetables and herbs. I baste it periodically. I have a convection oven, which helps a lot. The temperature stays a lot more constant because there's a fan in there, so it cooks a little more evenly and a little more quickly. So it's likely to be cooked before it's dried out, which is a little bit, that's one of the challenges of cooking a turkey well, is to not have it undercooked or overcooked. I always use a thermometer. A professional can probably tell by touching or looking at it if it's done, but that's not me. I always use a thermometer to decide when it's time to take it out. And that's worked really, really well for me. So that's like very essential equipment. How big of a turkey do you need? It depends on obviously how many people you're feeding. The general rule is about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds of raw turkey for every person that you're feeding. And that depends on if you want leftovers. Obviously, if you want to have leftovers, then go on the higher end of that. And if not, then, buy a smaller one. One year I cooked for probably 12, 13 people, and I had a 18 or 19 pound turkey. And I won't do that again because it's really hard to cook a big turkey like that. Again, if you're trying to do other things, it takes a long time to cook that turkey. So what I learned after that was, instead of cooking one big turkey, I buy a medium-sized 12, 14-pound turkey and an individual turkey breast, which you can get this time of year in the grocery stores. And usually they're pretty big, like 4, 5, 6, 7-pound turkey breast. So I have plenty of turkey, but I cook them separately, and it's much easier to cook a small to medium-sized turkey in a turkey breast than it is one big, huge turkey. So that's just me. I mean, my family likes white meat, so we have a lot of it, obviously, with an extra turkey breast. If you want more dark meat, then maybe that's not really, the best way to go for you. But you can cook 2 small turkeys if you don't want to cook one big one. But that, that takes some logistics too, because then you're cooking 2 turkeys. Anyway, so that's how I figure, what size to buy. The recipe that I'm using, and again, you don't have to write any of this down. It's all very well worded from the link that Rachel's going to give you. The day before you're going to cook it, and I did this yesterday, the dry brine is just sprinkling salt. So it's a tablespoon of salt for every 4 pounds. This is a 12-pound turkey. So I used about 3 tablespoons of salt. You sprinkle it all over the turkey, on the bottom, a little bit inside, and just use all of it. It seems like a lot, but it's mostly going to stay on the surface. You're not going to have this, like super salty meat when you're done. I do that right in the pan that I'm going to cook in it, just because it's easier to move around. So I did this yesterday in this pan, covered it with plastic, and I put it in the fridge. And that was yesterday. Then on the day that it's time, when you're ready to cook it, an hour or maybe 2 hours before you're going to put it in the oven, I take it out because I like it to come to room temperature. It'll cook more quickly, and it'll cook more evenly if it's not fridge cold. So I do that, take the plastic off a couple hours before I'm going to put it in the oven. You don't need to rinse the salt off. You can't even see it now. It's all kind of just melted into the skin, but don't feel like you have to take it off or wipe it off or anything like that. When you're ready to put it in the oven, I turn the oven on. It starts at a very hot oven, 450 degrees. And then I cut a lemon. This isn't really in the recipe. This is kind of my tweak. I cut a lemon in half and just stick that in. A whole head of garlic, cut it in half. Stick that in. And then I have some like rosemary, thyme, any herbs you have, parsley would work, sage, any herbs would be fine. And just kind of stick them in there. Now, I'm not sure that the meat is going to taste like lemon and garlic and herbs, but your kitchen's going to smell really good while it's cooking. I know that. So that's that. And then this is the basting sauce. It's maple syrup, a chili pepper paste, which this time I use this gochujang. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. It's a Korean chili pepper paste, a tablespoon of that. You can also use, I've done this before, I've used harissa paste, any kind of hot chili paste. And you want, I think the paste works better because it's not as liquidy and it'll stick to the turkey a little better. So maple syrup, the paste, and a tablespoon of melted butter. And then you just want to brush it all over the turkey and use it all. It'll seem like a lot, but you definitely want to use all of it. And try to stick it down in between, you know, at this point, I wouldn't flip the turkey over and try to baste the bottom of it. You could do that if, whatever, you were not afraid of losing it when you flipped it. But anyway, I find that this stuff kind of makes its way down to the bottom of the turkey, so I wouldn't bother to do that. But yeah, just use every last bit of it. Okay, that's good. And then it's ready to go into the oven. I put this in the oven at 450 degrees and leave it in there for 30 minutes. And then after 30 minutes, turn the temperature down to 350. So the first part of it cooks kind of hot and it gets it started and kind of gets the skin a little crisp. But then after 30 minutes, you turn it down to 350. And then once you turn it down to 350, maybe every 30 minutes, go back into the oven, and the recipe will tell you to melt another 5 tablespoons of butter. So you're going to baste it with the butter that's melted, maybe every 30 minutes. Try to do it as quickly as you can, because every time you open the oven, some heat comes out and you lose a little bit of temperature. And then when you run out of butter, there's going to be a bunch of juice in the bottom of the pan, all the stuff that's gone down there and melted, and just use that to baste it. This is going to turn really dark really quickly. It's going to look burnt. And it's not burnt. What it is the maple syrup and the basting liquid obviously has sugar in it, and sugar, when it gets hot, turns dark. So it'll look burnt. It won't taste burnt, but when you feel like it's as dark as you can stand it, put foil over it. Yeah, you know, when you take it out, look at it, and you're basting it, cover it with foil for the rest of the time it's going to cook, and then it won't you know, get brown any browner than that. I do take the foil off for the last 5-10 minutes just because you want the skin to crisp up right at the end. Sometimes it's hard to gauge when you're down to the last 5 or 10 minutes, but you know, just use your best judgment. And again, I use the thermometer. When the temperature of the breast is 155 degrees, I take it out of the oven. And you know, that's going to depend on the size of your turkey. Obviously, it's, you know, usually on the back of the turkey, it'll tell you how many minutes per pound it takes, which again is a rough guide. I always start checking early rather than late, because you know, once it's cooked, you can't go back. I take it out when the breast is 155. After you take it out, it's gonna still continue to cook because the pan is hot and there's a lot of heat in there. So it'll get up to 165, which is the temperature you want breast meat to be fully cooked. So you let it sit for a good half hour before you carve it, partly to let it finish cooking, but also so the juices can settle and the meat kind of, you know, firms up a little bit. It'll carve a lot easier if you give it a good 30 minutes. This turkey, which it still isn't here, they all come with these little buttons. It's a little temperature thing that's supposed to pop up when it's done. Over the years, I found they're not reliable. Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not, but you don't know without a thermometer if they're reliable. So I leave it in there, but I ignore it. I don't pay attention to it. As far as carving the turkey, the recipe that Rachel's going to give you the link to has links to 2 or 3 really good videos that demonstrate how to carve a turkey. Before the internet, I had to just kind of wing it and, you know, whatever. You can read how to do it, but it's so much easier to watch on a video. And that, the recipe on Smitten Kitchen, she has at least 2, maybe 3. The one I like is the one, I think it's from Martha Stewart, and it's It's very easy to follow, and the camera's above the turkey so you can see exactly what the person's doing who's demonstrating. So definitely use that to whatever, you know, to get the whole thing cut up once it's done. The other thing to remember, which is just logistically, when you take the turkey out of the oven, you got to let it sit for 30 minutes, and then you're going to carve it, which for me takes a good 20 or 30 minutes. So you have a whole hour there to do other things with your oven, which is one of the hard things about Thanksgiving, if it's all being cooked at your house and people are bringing things that need to be reheated, or you have other things that aren't cooked yet. So that gives you got a good hour after the turkey comes out before it's actually going to be on the table. So that's just good to know, because figuring out the schedule is almost as hard as figuring out how to cook everything. I didn't cook another whole turkey, but I did cook, using this recipe, a chicken, just so you can see what it looked like when it's done. And I hope you can see this. Okay, so it's very dark. It looks burnt, but trust me, it's not. That's just the sugar that gets brown or black when it gets hot. And I don't want to tip this too much, but in the bottom is this really luscious mix of like, it's a little bit of turkey fat and maple syrup and butter, and the onions have kind of melted. They're not really identifiable as onions anymore, but I would take all that liquid out and do something with it, like put it in the gravy or whatever. That stuff down there is like where all the flavor is. Well, not all of it, but a lot of the flavor. So don't dump that down the drain. Anyway, okay, so that's that. I hope that makes sense. The recipe is really well written. It's, you know, follow, you can just do exactly as she describes it. And I made it last year for the first time and it came out great. It was easy. Not a lot of ingredients except for the dry brining the day before. You don't have to do much in advance. So whatever. That's why I like it. And I really like her website a lot too. She's really good at those kind of recipes. She's a good teacher and she explains things about how and why, not just how to do it, but why you're doing it. So anyway. Any questions or whatever? Maybe we're going to do those later, or?
I think we'll do Q&A at the end, Mary, but that looks pretty amazing. Is there anything else you want to say just before we finish with your section?
I don't think so. Yeah, I wish you could taste it. No, really smell it and taste it. It smells really good. It's like I say, it's the mixture. It's a little spicy and a little sweet, and the lemon and the herbs are really, really nice too. So if people are here when you're cooking it, it's gonna make them want to stay for dinner.
Could you just repeat one more time the name of the person who created this recipe?
Okay, so the name of the blog is called, or the website blog, whatever, is smittenkitchen.com. The woman who runs it, her name is Deb Perelman, but her blog, you'll find it if you just, smittenkitchen.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mary. That was amazing. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So that was dry brine turkey with roasted onions, and that looks pretty fantastic. So now we're gonna go over to Miss Mila, who is gonna teach us how to make a sweet potato casserole, right, Mila?
Yes. So welcome to my kitchen, everyone. It's a dream come true to have my own cooking show. So here we are today. We're going to be making a vegan sweet potato casserole. Now, before you mute me and walk away, believe me, this sweet potato casserole for you non-vegans out there is a crowd pleaser. It's delicious. I made it last Thanksgiving, table full of non-vegans, and they loved it. So this recipe is not my recipe. It is from a site that I love to use called allrecipes.com. And it's quick, easy, and uses a lot of great ingredients that you might already have in your fridge, which is great. So first, what you'll want to do is you'll want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Oh, first, let me go over my ingredients that you'll need. So you'll need 3 sweet potatoes. Now, I already cooked the sweet potatoes today because some of you might know sweet potatoes can be a little bit finicky to cook. So you need 3 sweet potatoes. You'll need butter. You can use vegan butter or regular butter. Last year I just used regular butter. So this year I'm gonna try this one. I don't know, never tried it, but I like this brand. Makes good almond milk, so we'll see. And you'll need pecans. You'll need some flour. Salt. Some almond milk. Maple syrup. Brown sugar. Vanilla. Cinnamon. Nutmeg. Orange juice. And you will also need some cooking spray for your casserole dish. So first you preheat your oven to 350 and then you'll spray down your casserole dish. I just use like a Pyrex dish, super simple. And then you will cook your sweet potatoes. Now, what I like to do with sweet potatoes is I will peel them, you know, rinse them off, wash them, and then I like to chop them up into chunks because it helps them cook. I've made the mistake of just sticking whole potatoes to cook and in water, and it takes a long time. So I'll peel and cut into chunks some sweet potatoes, and then you put them in a pot with some water to cover them and put some salt in there, and you bring it to a boil. And then once you bring it to a boil, you will turn it down to medium low and cook it. I cover it for like 25 minutes. It says in the recipe 10 to 20 minutes, but I think I did 25. Little extra. As I said, sweet potatoes can be finicky. So you'll do that. And so now I'm going to move you down. We're going to be like a tasty video for this with my galley kitchen. So bear with me. Okay. So we have our sweet potatoes. So then what you will do is you will take your butter. So we have here, we have the, it is 1/4 cup of butter. So stick that in there. And then we put in our maple syrup. So for this part, we have 1/3 cup of maple syrup, one of my favorites. Stick that in there. So what you'll do is then you will put in some orange juice. And some almond milk. Some nutmeg. Looks like you got some salt here. Vanilla. Didn't get all the salt in there. And then, last but certainly not least, my favorite, cinnamon. So I pre-measured all these, as you can see, to make it a little bit easier today. So then what you'll do is you're going to mash it all together. So you just mash it till you like the consistency. You can also mash the potatoes and the butter first and then add in the other ingredients. So then once it's to your desired consistency, what you can also do to help kind of mix everything together is to also stir it. Oh, this smells so good. Now, once you have it to your desired consistency, look at this, it looks so good. So then you'll put this aside for right now. And then you want to make the crumble topping. Okay, so we'll get our bowl. And then you combine. First, you'll have some brown sugar. So this is a half a cup of brown sugar. And you'll do a third of a cup of flour. And then it's 3/4 of a cup of chopped pecans. I just threw these in the food processor to get chopped up. And 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And then 1/4 of a cup of butter. So then you'll stir this all together to combine. So see, it's already starting to get a little bit crumbly. The crumble topping is the best part. All right. Takes a while to combine it all, but it's getting there. So we'll put that aside for right now. We can give it another stir in a second because it does, as I said, it does take a while to combine it all. But now what you'll do is you'll take your casserole dish, keep it like that. Take your casserole dish, and you'll put your little potato mixture into your casserole dish. Grab a better spoon so I'm not scratching my precious pan. There we go, much better. So then you'll spread it out in the bottom of your pan. All right. A little bit tricky to get it all covered evenly. That's okay. I think we did pretty good. So now that we have our casserole dish, the first layer all covered, then we will get our topping and give it another good stir. And then you just pour it, sprinkle it on top. Now, what I did last year, which I think would be a really good idea, because I love the crumbly top so much, you can actually make like a double batch of it to get a lot of good crumble on top. And there we go. So then once you have that, you stick it in your oven and you cook it for 45 minutes until it's hot, and then you enjoy. And that is an easy vegan sweet potato casserole.
Okay, thank you so much, Mila. That also looks amazing. So one thing I was going to ask you each was to give us each like a dessert and drink recommendation for Thanksgiving. I almost feel like I wouldn't need a dessert if I have that casserole though. Like it just looks so delicious and sweet.
Yeah.
Please, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, with the maple syrup and the brown sugar and like vanilla. Yeah. Yeah, I'm drooling. I can't wait to eat this. But so you want a dessert and drink recommendation?
Yeah.
So I don't drink. So I don't have any good drink recommendations, but dessert I can definitely do.
It can be non-alcoholic.
Oh, okay. I am a big fan of hot cider.
Ooh.
So what I made last year actually for Halloween, which was really good, was a hot cider in a crock pot. It was a caramel apple cider. So you just get like the caramel syrup at the store, and then you put in a bunch of, your typical fall spices, the nutmeg, the cinnamon, all my favorites, and just, cook it in your crock pot, and so good. So I would definitely say hot cider is great for a drink. For dessert, there are two. So either if you want more of a traditional dessert, something super easy that I love is a recipe that I found online. I can't remember where, but they're called dump brownies. So let me get my cookbook, because it sounds weird, but they're very good. So it's super simple. You just take it's a box of chocolate cake mix, and there's chocolate pudding in there, milk, and chocolate chips, and that's it. And so you make the pudding just like the instant pudding and let it set, and then you combine it with all the other ingredients and bake it. And they're delicious brownies. If you want something, if you're on the vegan track, I made a delicious vegan chocolate cake. It was the first cake I ever made, and you make it actually in a loaf pan. Very simple. It's just flour, sugar, cocoa powder, baking soda, salt, vegetable oil, vanilla extract, white vinegar or apple cider vinegar, and water, and that's it. So I made frosting, just simple buttercream frosting. It's so good. So I like the sweets, as you can tell.
That sounds awesome. Thank you, Mila. So actually, if I could ask you to send us the dessert recipe too, I'll make sure that's available to everyone.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Mary, sorry, I just need you to unmute.
Sorry.
That's okay. If I could ask you for a drink and dessert recommendation, please.
Okay, well, as far as desserts go, my family is very traditional, and they like apple pie, pumpkin pie. I make little mince tarts, which are just little mini mincemeat pies, and pecan pie squares. So I've tried to vary the desserts over the years, but there's there are a lot of complaints if we don't have those four things. So that's what I make, and they're pretty standard: apple pie, pumpkin pie. As far as drinks go, I've made an apple cider sangria a lot, which most people like. It's apple cider with like either a sparkling white wine or just a plain white wine and a little bit of brandy and cut up apples and cranberries, which you can make ahead, and is really easy. And you can lighten it up with seltzer if you want to, cut it a little bit or just drink it the way it is. So I make that a lot. I usually ask people to bring a wine, whatever they like to drink, because I like to drink wine, but I'm not a wine, expert. So I don't care that everything is perfectly matched. I think, with Thanksgiving dinner, I would lean maybe towards lighter wines, like a Pinot Noir or a Sauvignon Blanc, something that's lighter, because there's so much heavy food. But I say to people, bring whatever you like, and usually have a mix so that everybody gets, some people like white with their meal, and some people like red, or some people like both. So that way, it's a way of people, contributing and bringing something that they like. And last year, someone that came brought a French red that I'd never had before, a Rhone type wine, which was really good. So, I've learned from other people, what I like and what tastes good. But I would lean towards the lighter wines because the meal is kind of heavy. But you know what? If you like Chardonnay or Cabernet Sauvignon, then drink that. It's really whatever you like. So
you're not a wine snob. No red versus
wine
white. Apple cider sangria sounds pretty awesome. I've actually never heard of that before, but I might have to ask you for that cocktail recipe. So it sounds perfect.
That always disappears. I've learned to make a double batch every year because that goes first.
Okay, thank you.
And I made a mistake, or I left something out when I was doing my recipe. It's all written down, so it would have been fine if whatever. But onions go around the turkey before you put it in the oven. They're just cut up onions, into quarters and a little bit of oil, and you spread those around the bottom, and they cook with the turkey. Obviously, that's part of the name of the turkey. But anyway, I forgot to show you that. So anyway,
do you want to take a minute now? Or?
Yeah.
Do you want to take a minute now, or is it all set?
Pardon?
Just to show us how you distribute the onion.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so basically, you're really just putting them around the bottom of the pan. They're not, they're going to be melted. Like, I don't know if you could see it here in the finished product, but by the time they're done cooking, they've kind of turned soft and disintegrated. But that's a good thing. So I just put them around the bottom. And it's a mixture of white and red onions, just for color and flavor. You can use whatever you want. You can use half and half, or all red or all white, whatever you have and whatever you like. So then when that cooks, they get all brown and soft and really good.
Wow. Okay, that does look fantastic. I was just curious before we end recording. The harissa sauce and everything, is this sort of Mediterranean influenced? Like, does that have roots in Mediterranean cuisine? This recipe, or?
Well, this recipe, I don't think really. She definitely suggests a hot pepper paste. So this one is Korean. The harissa it says on the label, it's Tunisian. I think that's more Middle Eastern.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
But you could use, you could use like a Southwestern hot chili paste too. I don't think the gist, you know, the point of it is to get something a little bit spicy in there that sticks to the skin and, you know, kind of gives it a lot of flavor. And again, a lot of it drips down into the liquid down below too, so you're getting some of that there. The way she wrote the recipe, she basically said, you know, any chili pepper paste would work. I had some of this and I like it, so that's why I used it, but you know, it wouldn't matter at all if you tried, you know, a lot of different cuisines have their own version of hot chili paste, right?
Yes. Okay, that's great. So it's more about the spice and the heat than it is about any specific one cuisine. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so you guys just saw some pretty spectacular Thanksgiving dishes, and we are going to send everyone watching this the recipes, including Mila and Mary. If you could both just send us your favorite dessert recipe, that'd be great, and we'll include those. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Once again, I'm Rachel Taylor, Adult Services Librarian at the Sprint Memorial Library. This is Thanksgiving 101, our first virtual cooking program, and we had a blast. So thank you so much, and happy Thanksgiving.